In the rural Ozarks of Missouri, live a 17-year-old girl, Ree Dolly, along with her mentally ill mother, 12-year-old brother Sonny, and 6-year-old sister Ashley. She hasn't seen her father, Jessup Dolly, for a really long time since he left, without telling anyone where he's going. Jessup is a criminal currently out on bail, following an arrest for manufacturing meth. Even though they live in poverty, the two little kids are still having fun, playing with each other around their house. Being the backbone of the family, Ree does all the home chores by herself since her mom is mentally unavailable, but her younger siblings still help her as much as they can. Their family is struggling badly. Ree even has to give out their horse to be taken care of by her kind neighbor, Sonia, because they can't even afford hay for the horse. While Ree is cutting up woods for the fire, the dog alerts her that someone is approaching their house. Sheriff Baskin comes to talk to Ree's mother, but Ree tells him that she isn't available to have a conversation. After some thinking, the sheriff finally tells Ree that her dad is running, because he's been hunting him for a while but can't find him anywhere. Her father's court date is around the corner, and if he doesn't show up, they'll lose the house since it's part of his bail bond. But Ree knows his dad, he'll not let that happen, so she tells the sheriff that she'll go find him. Ree and Sonny are watching their neighbor cutting up a deer. Since they can't afford them and don't have the ability to hunt it, it's been a long time since they had deer meat. But at night, Sonia comes to their house bringing the deer meat, potatoes and some other vegetables for stew, making the younger siblings' faces light up. The next day, Ree walks to her best friend's house, Gail, meaning to borrow her husband's truck. Entering the house, Ree notices Gail's husband is sitting in the living room and greets him before they get in the bedroom to talk. Ree explains to her that she needs to find her dad or she'll lose her house, and she needs to borrow the truck for it. Gail then goes to her husband to ask for his permission, but unfortunately, he doesn't want to lend it to Ree. She then goes to her uncle's place, Teardrop, who is also an addict. Arriving at his front step, she's greeted by his aunt, Victoria. She then tells her about the problem, until Teardrop shows up, telling her not to look for her father anymore. He states to her that she shouldn't have interfered with her father's business. But that doesn't stop Ree. She still asks if he knows his father's whereabouts. But that causes her to get choked by him, and a final warning from him before he leaves the room. Victoria goes to talk to him hoping to change his mind, but he already made up his mind. Victoria comes back with some money from him, then tells her that he wants her to stay home. Disregarding her uncle's warning, Ree walks to find her father's criminal friend, Little Arthur. At his place, he meets with a girl named Megan who takes her to Arthur's place. But even Arthur doesn't know her father's whereabouts. Arthur claims he last saw Jessup at their house last summer, and haven't heard from him ever since. Megan feels bad after hearing Ree left alone to take care of her mother and two younger siblings. So she helps Ree by showing her the way to the local criminal boss, Thump Milton, places. At his place, she meets a woman named Mirab, who is not so welcoming, asking what's her business. After introducing herself and explaining her intention, Mirab goes inside to talk with Thump. But it seems like Ree wasted her time waiting for her. Because when Mirab comes back, she tells her that Thump doesn't want to meet with her. Despite knowing what she wants to ask, he still wants nothing to do with her. Mirab gives her something to drink then asks her to leave. Thump is her last lead, so she still doesn't give up. She says to Mirab how they're still related and that it has to mean something, but that earns her nothing but her fury. When she's about to serve dinner, her father's cousin, who is also his criminal friend, Blonde Milton, knocks aggressively at her door. He is angry because Ree is going around asking for her father. He drags her to his car forcing her to come with him. Sonny tries to save her sister, but Ree tells him to go inside, knowing Blonde is as crazy as the rest of his family. He brings Ree to a burnt house, telling her that's the last place anybody had seen her dad. But Ree knows better. She knows her dad never blew up his lab or cooked bad batches. So she gets out to check out the place, ignoring the risk of being exposed. She scans the burned up lab carefully. If it's indeed her father's lab, she wants to find his body and get him to bury it. But just like she expected, she finds nothing of her father's traces. Back at her home, Blonde offers Ree to take Sonny under his care. But his offer makes Ree more angry. She knows that he tricked her. She notices there's already wild grass at the lab, meaning it's been at least a year since the place blew up. As a guardian for her younger siblings, Ree teaches them surviving skills as much as she can, including hunting for food. She teaches Sonny and Ashley to use hunting guns to hunt for squirrels. Suddenly, Gail comes telling Ree that her husband finally agrees to let her borrow his truck. Ree, Gail and her baby go to meet with another Jessup's friend. They meet up with a woman who used to be Jessup's partner. Ree asks her about her father, but she says she also doesn't know her father's whereabouts. She and Jessup bumped into each other in town a couple months ago and caught up for a day or two, until he disappeared again. Then a few weeks ago they meet again, but Jessup is with a couple other men she doesn't know, and he doesn't look well. The woman also claims that Jessup looks like he doesn't recognize her and that's what makes her think that something's wrong. The next day, Ree continues to teach her younger siblings how to hunt. They're waiting for squirrels to show up while Sonny complains because he finds the whole thing boring. After catching enough squirrels, Ree also teaches them how to clean the animals. Sunny refuses when Ree asks him to clean them, but then she makes him understand that they need this to survive. Then, when Ree is cutting up wood for the fire, Teardrop comes, surprising her. He comes to inform Ree that the police found her father's car last night. Someone lit it up, but luckily he wasn't found inside. He also gives Ree a letter from the court. Her father's trial is this morning and he doesn't show up, so that means they will get kicked out of the house soon. Struggling making decisions, Ree asks her mom to help her. But sadly her mom is too sick to help her, leaving the 17-year-old with a huge burden on her shoulder. Ree just arrives at her house where she meets with her father's bondsman. He tells her that her father is now a runner, but Ree knows that her dad will never run and abandon his family. Ree believes that her father must be already dead somewhere because Dolly doesn't run. But of course the bondsman doesn't believe her. He also tells Ree that someone came to his office and dropped a lot of money to cover her father's bond, but this person left no identity. Ree only has a week left before they get kicked out of the house, unless she can prove that her father is really dead. Getting short on time, Ree decides to try to talk with Thump Milton again. She finds him in an auction place. She calls and shouts for him multiple times, but Thump doesn't even look in her direction. Still hasn't given up, Ree goes to Thump's house, where he meets with Mirab and her sisters. This time, Mirab shows her no mercy. Without saying a word she throws hot coffee right on Ree's face. Then, she and her sisters drag her to their barn, where they beat her up. After being beaten up badly, Ree wakes up surrounded by Mirab and the other Milton. Suddenly, the door opens and Thump Milton walks in. Ree finally gets the opportunity to explain to Thump about her situation, how she can't carry her family without their house. Not long after, Teardrop comes to save Ree. He faces Thump explaining that whatever Jessup does wrong, Ree has nothing to do with it. Thump understands and lets Ree go. At the car, Teardrop finally tells Ree what he really knows about her father. Turns out, Jessup had started working for the sheriff to snitch on the other drug dealers. Teardrop also tells Ree if she ever finds out who killed Jessup, don't tell him because if he finds out, he'll do something out of his mind. After Teardrop drops her at her house, Ree gets taken care of by Gail. She cleans Ree's wounds as much as she can. Fortunately, Sonia comes by to bring painkillers for Ree to help her rest better. Sunny and Ashley come by later to sleep beside Ree. The next morning, Ree and Gail are standing on the porch while Sunny and Ashley play on the trampoline nearby. Ree then tells Gail that blonde Milton offers to take Sunny under his care. And if it's really how it ends, she's also gonna ask Teardrop to take Ashley. Gail looks at her with sympathy, wishing it won't turn out like this. Running out of time, Ree is thinking of joining the military for the $40,000 bonus. She comes to the local base to ask more about it. After talking with the recruiter, she finds out that they're not gonna give the money immediately or anytime soon. And she also needs parental permission since she's still underage. So now, joining the military is no longer a way out. In the middle of the night, Ree gets woken up by Teardrop saying he's tired of waiting. He brings Ree to the local bar, where he hopes to meet someone who has some information about Jessup. In front of the bar, they spot some of Jessup's criminal friends. Teardrop comes up to them asking about Jessup, but they claim that they haven't heard anything about him either. Unsatisfied with their answer, Teardrop gets back to his car, and grabs an axe from his trunk, then goes to swing it on their car. Of course his actions make them angry and curse at him, but Teardrop doesn't care. Continuing the search, they go to their local cemetery searching for Jessup, or rather his body. But still, they got no lead. On their way back, they get stopped by Sheriff Baskin. The sheriff commands Teardrop to step out of the car, but he refuses him. He then gets his gun to display it, where the sheriff can see it by the rearview mirror. Fearing for his life, the sheriff backs up and lets them go without any words. At home, Ree speaks about how embarrassed she is for his dad. She never thought that his dad would do something as dishonorable as snitching. Teardrop defends his brother. Jessup stays loyal for so many years, and he only does that because he didn't want to lose time for his children to prison. In the morning, Ree is cleaning old stuff, preparing should they really need to move out. She finds old photo albums belong to her dad. She also shows them to Sunny and Ashley. There are some pictures of her dad and Teardrop from their childhood, and some from her dad's teenage years. Later that day, Mirab and one of her sisters come knocking at her door, telling her that they have answers to all of Ree's problems. Due to the fact that last time they met, Mirab and his sisters beat her up badly, Ree responded to them harshly. But Mirab stays calm, and after she tells her that she'll take her to her father's body, Ree starts to lower her guards and agree to come with them. Ree has her head covered with a sack the entire ride, and when they arrive Mirab warns her to forget that she was ever here. Then, they start walking to the lake bringing chainsaws and flashlights since the day has already gone dark. 3 of them get on a boat and start to paddle until they stop at a point. Mirab tells Ree that her father is right in there, so she needs to reach her hand and pick him up. Ree tries to reach into the water a couple times until she does get a hold of her father's hand. Not giving her time to process the fact that her father is really dad, Mirab tells Ree that she needs to get her father's hands for the police, as proof that Jessup Dolly is really dead. But of course Ree can't do it. How could she? Aside from what he did for money, he still is her father whom she loved. So, Mirab decides to do it herself. She gets the chainsaw to start and gets one of Jessup's hands. Mirab thinks that the police not gonna believe it if they only take one hand, so she make Rita reach out for her father again and take his other hand. On the way back, Ree only stares at the blank, processing what just happened. The next day, Ree goes to the police station bringing her father's hands to Sheriff Baskin. Since she already made a promise to Mirab that she won't tell anyone, she tells the sheriff that someone flung them onto the porch of her house. Before Ree leaves, the sheriff stops her to say that he didn't arrest Teardrop that night because Ree was there. Of course, it's only an excuse for his cowardness. His ego is too high to admit that he's afraid of some addict. Back at home, Ree is staring at her father's closet, where she finds his old banjo sitting at the bottom of it. When Ree is hanging their laundry and the younger siblings are playing near her, Teardrop comes to bring 2 little ducklings to raise as a gift for Sunny and Ashley. Suddenly, the bondsman comes, giving Ashley some money. He tells her that they already took that share, and that portion is hers. Then, the 3 of them sit around Teardrop, watching him play their dad's banjo. After he finished, he tells Ree that he knows who killed Jessup, then gets up to leave. Ree then offers him to keep the banjo, but Teardrop refuses, asking her to keep it for him. Ree watches him leaving their house as she, Sunny, and Ashley sit at the staircase. Ashley then goes to pick up the banjo and starts to play it. Jessup Dolly dies, leaving her barely adult daughter to take care of her mother and 2 little siblings. Maybe Ree will always have to sacrifice herself for her family along the way. But it'll be worth it, because she'll be lost without them. Her father raises her to be strong and not give up easily. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like and comment to help the channel out. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.